Kevin Warren is Chief Operating Officer for the Minnesota Vikings, and we welcome you back to the Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center. As I said atop the show, we have gone from Winter Park to a winter wonderland as it is now, and there are so many things developing here and so many things to chat about. We welcome Kevin to the show. How are you, sir?
Excellent. Good to be here. Always good to be on your show. I love spending time with you and Paul and everyone else, and so to have you here at our home and your new home part of the time is a special day.
Now, before we move forward and we talk about so many positive things developing, not only with this facility, with this football team, I want to go back to the Super Bowl, just so many things when we're blessed to have you on the radio show. One thing I'm being careful not to do, specifically on the radio, I'm not going to disparage Winter Park, which was antiquated. It was small. It had an intimate feel to it, which is tough to find in a lot of facets of life. And in those hallways and those offices and on those fields, man, Bud Grant, Jerry Burns, Fran Tarkenton, Randy Moss, Dante Culpepper, in those offices, so on and so on and so on, So, I guess this is kind of a truncated, off-the-cuff ode to Winter Park before we move on.
No, we feel the same way. I mean, the time that we spent, the organization of Winter Park, I know it's time personally that I spent in Winter Park. I became somewhat emotional in the day we left, because I thought back, that's where my son Powers learned how to catch a football, and time I spent with my daughter, running an indoor facility, and then going to work with, Dad on Saturday. I mean, and the pizza parties for the hockey teams and all that. It's an incredible memories. But I'll tell you this, one of the great things about our staff here, Aaron Schwartz and all of our branding staff and other folks here, is they did a masterful job of basically capturing the essence and the core and the grit of Winter Park, and they brought it along here. I mean, when you see Coach Grant's office, that is Max Winter's office. And I think someone asked me in the last couple of days what really has stood out to me most in this transition, and it was the fact that our employees are special. I came in on Saturday, and Aaron Schwartz was in there with a mask and goggles on, sanding Max Winter's old desk to get it ready for Coach Grant, because she said it wasn't ready for Coach Grant.
I love that.
And so this building, you don't feel like you're in a new place and we forgot Winter Park. It feels like we brought Winter Park with us. Yeah,
and there are so many stories like that as the off-the-cuff ode to Winter Park starts the final hour, 9 to noon. For me personally, given media relations mogul Bob Hagan started in the 90s, he was at Winter Park so long, watching him go from 5'1" to 5'4". I mean, it seriously was akin to my son saying his first words. And I just can't get stuff like that off my mind.
Right. No, it really is it's a special place, and I think that's one of the things that we did a phenomenal job of. Is, like I said, is seeing all the artwork and remembering. I mean, you come in here, this is much about our past. And you've heard me say this. One of the things that the Wolf family has done better than any owners is that most people, when they buy teams, they focus on the bricks and mortar in the current team, but they realize some of the greatest assets are in the history of the past. And so they've done a great job of incorporating that throughout this building, from the picture, from the art, from the decor, all those different things. So I think whoever you are, from an infant to if you're Millie, you're gonna feel comfortable here. And if you played with us in the '60s, all the way, if you're playing today, you're gonna feel like this is home.
Well, just walking to this spot, we walked by a photo retrospective of every coach, every head coach that the Vikings have had, and I thought to myself, am I gonna see Les Steckel? There he is. There's Les Steckel.
But along those lines, one of the coolest things, again, that the environment the Wolves have built is this one team, one goal. I mean, every employee, from the first day that the Vikings were launched in the early 1960s, who's worked for the Minnesota Vikings, name is on there.
No kidding.
619 employees. So when you go up there and you start seeing, from Les Steckel to Mike Tomlin to Jason Cohen, I mean, but even Jerry Rome. I mean, these names, Bobby Daggett, people who really spent a lot of time in this organization. That was something that we spent, a lot of organizations may do this, and
Who's
it's just
Bobby
current
Daggett?
employees. She was one of the key people in the accounting department. She's the one who processed those big checks you get.
I had all her albums. I was there when she opened for Bobby Womack. Right. She covered Harry Hippie. Are you kidding me? One of the greatest moments of my life.
Right, that's right. So I say that to say, but if you go out there and see that, it really is special.
Oh, that's awesome.
By the way, going by these pictures, the long row of coaches, and actually considering how old the Vikings are, it doesn't have that many coaches, right?
Right.
I mean, there's some teams that are, the Browns are on their 9th coach since 2000.
I mean, think about that.
Right.
And it's not only the pictures that are up, but it's what's written on there. They give a history currently of Coach Zimmer, who we all love.
Yeah.
But then to see Brad Childress and his background, and Leslie Frazier, like you said, Les Steckel, and others, Jerry Burns, the word that comes to mind thinking about Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center is very thoughtful.
The photos that are put up of all these coaches, I know the team is dedicated to Mike Zimmer because there's not much room to put any after
right.
Mike.
I'm glad you picked that up. That's right. That's right.
It's not a long runway. It's at the end. So,
that's right.
Mike's in a good spot.
Kevin, don't that guy. I mean, this is a very fan-friendly facility, as we will find out with training camp. The guy outside running around in the burgundy number 8 jersey, don't worry about him. We have security on it, and we're going to continue with the conversation now. Kevin Warren, Chief Operating Officer for the Minnesota Vikings, is with us now. So just your stream your consciousness. Yeah. What do you like about Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center?
Home, bright, comfortable.
It is bright. A lot of sunlight.
A lot of sunlight. Legacy, thoughtful, special. Will family, history. I think all of those different things, we were able to really, pull it together. This will be a place to allow our staff, our coaches, our players, everyone associated with it to be the best that they can be. I mean, to be able to work here. And I know for me, we put in thousands. I think about the number of hours in 13 years that we put in Winter Park. I'm scared to even, tell you how many that is. But this, you feel good when you walk into this building. You feel you feel the same way you did when you walked into U.S. Bank Stadium. The only difference is we're there for 10 days.
Well, you need a compass.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a big building.
Yeah, it's a big building. And but it's a good place. And as I said, to have a staff gym and coming in early in the morning and then to see it fill up with staff here, men and women, football, business, everyone in here is special. You're like, wow, this is really a mother's room where women who are nursing can be in a professional, comfortable environment. The cafeteria and all the thoughtful, called the huddle. I mean, all these things that come together. It really is a special place.
You've also pulled together a lot of people that were in maybe different physical locations, right? And now you get most everybody under one roof as well, and that's got to be nice.
We're in 5. I mean, the last couple of years have been challenging. We had employees in 5 different locations.
Right.
5 different locations. So
1010 Blue Building.
Winter Park.
Yeah, Winter Park.
Here.
Here.
And the stadium.
Ticket
off the stadium.
Right.
And so even running the different meetings and conference calls.
Sure.
And so I just think all of these meetings that we had at restaurants and other places, to now to be able to say, hey, I got a question. I've even caught myself a couple of times calling someone who used to be at 1010, and then I said, wait a minute, they're just right around the corner. Let me just walk around the corner. Let's meet in the cafeteria. And even if you notice the design, we built it in an open area. That we have 16 conference rooms. You don't have to have a conference room. There are a lot of places just like this where you can sit down and have a meeting. And so it was very thoughtful, a lot of time and energy. And the best thing about it, all of this design, all of these different things that brought it to life were done internally by all of our internal employees. Most of the time, people go out and hire companies to do it.
Wow. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that because we've already talked to a couple of people. We talked to Shug, we talked to Brian Harper.
Yep.
They had real hands-on time with your architect to explain what they needed. And so you decided to take an approach that said, we're going to take all of our best people and ask them, how do we make this building right for you?
And that's a great thing about it. But then even once we did that, then our internal branding group, people that work in the fort, were able to really bring it to life. I mean, they're the ones that design. I mean, look at that's the Skull Vikings song, just little subtle wallpaper, in there. And so it really has made it incredibly special to see these young people work. I mean, these young folks that we have are so talented. Some of the stuff that they come up with and create is special.
Well, I think with us three right here, the producer Nordo, Paul Charchian, yours truly, coming to the Twin Cities Orthopedic Performance Center, it's going to stick the show probably $100,000 in remodeling of our houses.
That's right.
Because we look around and it's like, I got to have that.
I gotta have
that ground molding up there. How have I not had that in my living room?
I gotta have that.
You know,
That's right,
I mean,
right.
I gotta get the fight song on my wall now.
The wall, that's right.
I mean, because it's so new and it's just so fresh and it's so beautiful. And you know, there is, and I'm sure you've been here a week. Yeah, I was here for several hours 2 days ago. Got a tour. Here I am now. But there are people. It's kind of like when Target Field opened, when U.S. Bank Stadium opened. You have the zombie effect, where people are working and they're doing their thing, but they're walking around and they're just casting their gaze at things they didn't see on the previous walk because it's so visually impressive and just so new.
It really is. It's like I said, people are excited. I mean, really excited to come to work because we have it all here. I mean, people are coming in early. They're working out.
Don't even have the players here yet.
That's right. Right. We haven't even added the most important component to it. And I mean, you walk in that indoor facility, and when you watch at that, I mean, look how that has laid out. It really is an environment. And I just think of all the great memories, not only that have been created, but that are going to be created. There are young people right now who are not even born yet that will one day run around these halls and play for the Vikings. But even the family, we have some young employees who have young kids who have been born that are one of them 2 weeks old.
Yeah.
And to be able to see them come up and down the superhighway and have fun here. And then we haven't even finished out a lot of the things we've talked about, with the apartments and a hotel and conference center and the STEM program. I mean, Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center is opening their medical office building and their sports medicine center here, in the next couple months. And the field is coming. Just think when that's done.
I was just going to ask that. So when I pulled up, I because you were moving in, I didn't expect there to be 20 cement trucks outside and a crane, and so there's still a lot of things that are being built. So outside of what's been completed here, can you just touch on the things that are still under construction?
Yeah, the things that are under construction and not just on paper, but under construction is really the TCO Stadium. And so that's under construction, and that'll be here, ready in the next couple months.
How about that scoreboard?
I mean, how about that?
I mean, seriously, was U.S. Bank Stadium or Jerry Jones not available?
Yeah, but
Lord.
think about the scoreboard when you really think about it. Is it going to be great for our players and coaches and staff and all that? Absolutely. But think about those high school players.
Oh, wow.
Like, can you imagine being a high school player in the state of Minnesota playing a game here on Friday night at the Vikings facility, looking in the weight room and see that scoreboard and the highlights? I mean, that's why I say when we built that, there are a lot of areas that the Will family could have cut corners on, but that's not only for us, but it's also for the give back from a community standpoint. That's what makes this really exciting.
Well, you've all, correct me if I'm wrong here, but you've already had members of the Eagan High School football team in your field house, right?
Yeah, that's what I think they came in here to, because these fields you got to help break in, so they got to have people running around. But
is that really a thing? Do you really need to break in?
Oh yeah, you need to, because
turf?
because the rubber needs to kind of settle. You need to get some activity on it. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
So absolutely. So the more
just bring in Linball and have him run around.
That's right. We need like a marching band or something.
Marching Linballs. Sucker be fixing in about 5 minutes.
That's right. That's right. But speaking of that, it's going to be great to have the players back.
I need a favor.
Absolutely.
And it does not involve money for the first time.
Right.
Can you stay for another segment?
I can do whatever you want. You know that. You know what I feel about you all.
So many things about which to chat with Kevin Warren, Chief Operating Officer, Minnesota Vikings, from the Vikings' new home. Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center. It's breathtaking. We'll continue to share stories and chat Vikings football after this. There's a lady, a very kind and talented lady who works for the Minnesota Vikings named Ann Deppner, Director of Football Administration. If you want to make that simplistic, she is the right-hand person or woman for your capologist, your money guy, Rob Brzezinski. In fact, with the Dalvin Cook draft class, from what I understand, Ann negotiated and structured all those contracts from Dalvin Cook through Pat Elflein, Ben Getty, and the whole thing. I saw her at the Combine.
Right.
I saw her walking around at the Combine. Maybe she goes to every one. I've just never seen her. But, yesterday being National Women's Day. International Women's Day.
Yeah.
Not only was I thinking of her, I was thinking of a lot of women on a lot of different levels, whether they're high-performing executives, moms, or whatever.
Right.
But I also thought of you because I know that cause, and not necessarily a cause, but advocacy and empowering women in the workplace is something that's very important to you. And yesterday had to be a big day, right?
It really was a big day. We had a luncheon in the cafeteria, and we had a conversation about that. You know, Tammy Krause spoke, Ann Deppner spoke, and I even made a comment that Ann spoke at one of the league meetings earlier in the year. I was with her there with Karen Nelson, who's our VP of League on HR, and Ann said something that really resonated in my spirit at that conference. She said, you know, you always got to remember that when you make it to the top, you got to send the elevator back down.
Yep.
And it really hit. We have, I mean, PA and Paul, we have the most incredible employees, but we have the most incredible women. I mean, I've been blessed to work at 3 different franchises. And the thing that really opened my mind of the power of women in sports is I was able to work for the only woman general partner in the history of the NFL, Georgia Frontiere.
Yeah.
That's how I started my career.
Yeah.
And so every meeting I go into, every decision, I look at it through the prism from the eyes of a woman, and was raised by a powerful woman, strong woman, was raised by also 2 other powerful, strong sisters, and I'm married to my wife Greta, who's incredibly powerful and strong and honest, and we're trying to raise a powerful and strong daughter in our daughter Perry. But I say that to say, when you see what the women do here, from a work standpoint, from a work-life balance, taking care of their health, their kids, their family, their parents, I mean, and they're bright. And so when you think throughout our organization, from Ann Deppner, what she does in football ops, Kelly Klein over there, Tanya Dreesen, who's one of our vice presidents.
And those are football jobs so many men would like to have, and these ladies are so good at them.
They're good. So the list goes on. You know, Kay Schlabilski, who's our VP of Finance, has been out on maternity leave, but still keeping up. And I think she's coming back here in the next couple weeks.
Some of your best account executives are women.
Incredible. So I say that to say I think that's one of the things from a Viking standpoint that we've done a really good job of, but we can even continue to do a better job of. I think of all the wives of the Wilfs. I mean Jane, Beth, and Audrey, and the different wives of our owners of Lenny, Mark, and Ziggy. They are smart. They're creative, they're powerful, they're bright, they're funny, they're affable. They have all of the elements. So that's what's great about the women that we have in our organization. Mm-hmm. They can look to our ownership group from a leadership standpoint. And so it's been outstanding to work arm in arm with some of these great women. And I just think you're going to continually see them get promoted and get empowered here in this organization.
Minnesota Vikings Chief Operating Officer Kevin Warren on the feast.
So across the NFL, there are still big voids where women aren't.
Correct.
Coaching, as an example. I think there's one female coach in the league. Scouting has been another area where I think there are a handful of female scouts, but only a couple. Do you think there are things the league can do to help advance women into the field and then promote them in those 2 areas in particular?
That's a great question. They're doing it already. I mean, Sam Rappaport is a name you need to remember. She's in football operations at the NFL, but she has been very instrumental in putting on a Women's Forum. And like I said, Ann Deppner spoke on a panel there. And when I saw Ann on this panel, and think of this view, it had David Shaw, the head coach of Stanford, on one side, Ron Rivera, the head coach of Carolina Panthers, and Ann up there. And then Karen Nelson, who's our VP of Legal and HR, spoke. You know, I spoke there. So they have these symposiums where there were 400 women that applied. They accepted 50 in. And these young women come there and they get jobs. I mean, look what happened with Kelly Klein, what Rick Spielman and Rob Brzezinski and George Payton have done in our football operations. And I have to tip my hat to Rick on a lot of different things. But the way that he's empowered women in the scouting department is incredible. I mean, Kelly Klein has come in here and has done an incredible job and making a major impact, you know, from a scouting standpoint. So I think what we need to do is the league, they have some responsibility, but it's the individual teams to make sure that we give everyone, regardless of your color, your background, your race, your ethnicity, your financial status, is that if you're good and you're diligent and you do the things that you're supposed to do, that we give people an opportunity to succeed. Almost 50% of our season ticket holders are women. And so you think about it, just look at the crowd. You know, when I'm at the game, am I watching the game? But I'm looking at signage, I'm looking at commercial breaks, I'm getting ideas.
Sure.
I'm looking at the crowds, not only from a racial demographic standpoint, but from a male-female. And there are many women there as it is men. And so when we have to start thinking from branding, from merchandising, from the connectivity to food that we serve, women are our key component to our business brand. And in most households, a lot of households, they actually control all the dollars because they're spending sometimes an inordinate amount of time with the kids.
Yeah.
And so the kids and women really control the dollars in the majority of the American households.
Coaching is tricky, though, isn't it? Because, the feeder systems that we've got to get into coaching, there's, it's not like there's a bunch of female high school coaches or female college coaches or assistant coaches. And coaching seems like this would be the area that's going to be maybe the slowest one to develop for women.
Yeah, but it's interesting. If you watch the NFL honors, I mean, look who got one of the achievement world awards was a young lady from Utah, Sam. Remember a couple years ago when she was scoring all the touchdowns? She is now,
I remember that actually.
But she's now created a program in Utah where they actually have high school football for women. So I think when you start getting that kind of energy going behind it, I have no doubt, when it will happen, who knows, but I have no doubt that one day in the future that there will be a woman head coach. I mean, you look what the Spurs are doing from their standpoint. So talent is talent.
Yeah, and by the way, as just a quick side note, various times over the years I've talked to players about how would you feel about having a female coach, and to a man, they've all said, I'd be fine with that. I'm there to be coached, and I assume the team's going to put a good coach in front of me, and I would take direction from a coach, and I would take coaching from a female, and I would take that direction. So I think the players are open to it too. I just think we need a feeder system. We need women to have the courage to go try to be a coach when you don't know any other women that are coaches, and hopefully we can get women that want to do that and have the gumption to go do it.
What at what point of your life, whether it was with the Rams, the Lions here, when you were in Arizona, what were some things that transpired in your life where you did not fear change, because becoming trailblazing is uncomfortable. I mean, there's an uncomfortability with trailblazing and trying things new and failing, and then not being embarrassed at the failure and dusting your proverbial self off and getting up and trying it again. I mean, for those listening now, thinking about change, thinking about going outside of the box, specifically in a habit state, it can be uncomfortable and difficult. How would you respond to that?
I mean, I think, and I've said this before in some speeches that I've given, I am so grateful of that warm summer day in June of 1974 when I got run over by that car. And I say that sincerely, because I spent a couple of months in traction in a hospital. I spent many more months in a full body cast at home. And so when I say that I've been flat on my back as a young person, and I challenge everyone, try to eat just for one day. Just eat all your meals on laying down. And so to think that I did that for almost a year, and so I really learned as a young age the simplistic things in life, to not shower for 8 or 9 months and to have to go to the bathroom in the bedpan, not to get graphic, and depending on others. So when I got a chance to come out of that body cast as a young person, I knew that I was going to spend the rest of my life every single day telling you exactly what I feel, not that is always correct, but trying to help as many people as I possibly can, and really soaking up life, because that's when I realized that life truly is a gift. I should have died. I lived. I felt like I got a second chance. And so at that point in time, change became nothing. And so I feel very fortunate, because I think our growth in life really comes through those tough times. And unfortunately, some people don't get theirs till they're 50 or 60. I got mine at 11, and so I have always kind of viewed life probably differently than a lot of other people.
Yes, sir.
Back to the facility for just a minute. Help the listeners understand how they get to interact with this facility over the course of time here, and once everything's finished. What are the touch points for our listeners to interact with this area?
Specifically with training camp. I mean, because there are thousands listening right now who are like, great, I went to Mankato every year. How do I get to this thing in Aiken?
We have already started. The Vikings, we start stuff years in advance. But we've already started our planning now, and we're going to make training camp a holistic environment. I mean, we'll have our Vikings museum that will be open. We'll have practices that will be here. We'll communicate with the schedule. I mean, this stadium, can you imagine that Saturday night scrimmage at now Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center, under the lights that will be going on. We're going to have probably some concerts. I mean, I visualized one day having like a summer concert series here. So we'll have at the appropriate time the great communication and about parking and logistics and where do you park? Do you park on site? Do we bus you in? However all that works. But I can tell you, when you come to training camp and you'll feel really good and feel very proud that you're a Minnesotan and the Minnesota Vikings are here in the Twin Cities.
You are the team's chief operating officer. Free agency is a big time of the year. It begins next week. How do you handle that? Like, what do you do? How do you follow it?
I mean, one good thing about this organization, as I said from the top, is all about the people. And I and all of us have the implicit trust in our folks who are in charge of that. I mean, you know, Rick Spielman, if you've been around him, he's one of the most professional and detailed individuals in all of sports, not just in the National Football League. And then with Rob Brzezinski and George Payton and Ann and Coach Zimmer and all the coaches, it's a very collaborative process. And so it's exciting now to be in an environment where you're not in a rebuild, when you're able to focus on what are those key components, whether it's like Rick has built through the draft and free agency, that you can just help kind of solidify, you know, our team. So I'm incredibly excited. Can't wait till the schedule comes out. Can't wait till the season begins. And to have this building and then now have a stadium. You think where we were 4 years ago with the Metrodome and Winter Park. Just think about it.
Amazing.
And now to have this transformed to now with U.S. Bank Stadium. It was interesting. I walked into U.S. Bank Stadium on Wednesday for a meeting, and I was like, man, this really feels nice. This is a great stadium, but then to come to work here. So all of the elements are in place for the Vikings to be a dominant franchise in the National Football League for the next 20 years.
You mentioned the schedule. How would you feel about the Vikings being the team that opens up the 2018 NFL schedule Thursday against the Eagles?
Every game is exciting, and I'm excited about the preseason. Also, I mean, this is one of those times, because typically when you get this time of the year, you got free agency, then next month is a draft. You know, you're not really thinking about training camp. But to be really, you know, when you think about it, just think we're going to be sitting here doing interviews, and you're going to be able to walk right out those doors and watch training camp practice. So I'm just excited I'm in a state of excitement.
Kevin, you talk about the metamorphosis of how far things have come. You said, you know, Metrodome, Winter Park, U.S. Bank Stadium, and now Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center. I mean, you were here 11 years ago. The team slogan
13.
Was you. Yeah, well, 11 years ago, the team slogan was "You made the team."
Right.
And guess what? People off the street actually probably could have made the team.
Right. I mean, you think how it's come together. And I was thinking, I told our staff, I was driving in, I thought about Dennis Ryan. You know, it's people like that who've been here really his whole career. I mean, he worked at the Met. And all these different places. You know, people don't know he's the one that created the shield that goes on the helmet. And
Holy
so part
cow.
of our tenets here of being relentless and unifying and innovative, it's employees like the Dennis Ryan who have been around here. So I'm happy for them. I'm happy they got a beautiful place to come to work. People have their space. It's comfortable. The cafeteria is great. All the light. People are just happy, and again, I just take a bow to the Wolf family, who really had the intestinal fortitude to step out there and say, we're going to build this. We're not looking for any public money. We're building this with private money, and we're going to do this the right way, and it's going to be a showcase for the world.
Speaking of people we enjoy, I really enjoy Eagan Mayor Mike McGuire. He's not here, but I see him on Twitter, and I did something for
he's a special guy
for the Eagan for Eagan a couple of weeks ago at some studios. Yeah, right. There is that. But, like, in closing, having Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center here, all these new people that are here, and it's called Vikings Lakes, right?
Yes, right.
Yeah, and all the development around here. I mean, seriously, what a great time to be the mayor of this city.
I mean, we're going to have 1,000 apartments, you know, a hotel, conference center, like I said, STEM, and then to have TCO here on campus too. I mean, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I have to say, whether Troy Simonson, their CEO, is not only tough, he's smart, he's a visionary, he's a great partner, and to be able to work with him and have him to see this 3 or 4 years ago when we were talking about this, to have the guts to go to his doctors and build this is really special. To have them right here together, that's what it's about. Two great Minnesota companies coming together, doing great things in the state of Minnesota for our fans.
Kevin, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Kevin Warren, Chief Operating Officer for the Minnesota Vikings.
Paul P.A. Nordo, thank you all.
Appreciate you, Kevin.
All right, God bless you.
Current player Jarius Wright joins us next.